In the next 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to show you how to read notes, both in the treble clef and the bass clef, like this. If you are a music producer, either a novice, intermediate, or even advanced music producer, and you haven't really gotten down your music theory, reading notes is time-consuming and complicated for you, this video is perfect for you. I taught one-on-one private music instruction for the piano for about 15 years. And in those 15 years, I've taught students from ages 5 all the way to 75. And this method works for absolutely everybody. Now we're going to start with the treble clef. The treble clef is the one that has this sign right here. It is called the treble clef, and it usually signifies the higher notes of the scale. If you're playing the piano, it's usually the keys that you play with your right hand. If you're playing the guitar, they're usually the higher stringed notes. Most lead instruments are in the treble clef scale, so keep that in mind. Now the treble clef scale has 2 rules that, if you remember, will make reading notes for you super easy, and we're going to go over them right now. The first and foremost thing to note is that each scale, each bar or clef, if you will, has 5 lines in them, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and they have 4 spaces in between, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So remember, you've got 5 lines, you got 4 spaces. In those 5 lines, you are going to start from the letter E, and you're going to go all the way up to the letter F. Now, even though you're going up all those notes, why are you just going from E to F? Well, music starts from the letter A, or the note A, and it goes all the way to the note G. If you're in Europe, you learned do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, or do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, depending on where you are in the world. Here in North America, we refer to the notes by letters: C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So do would be C, re would be D, mi would be E, fa would be F, la would be G, sol would be A, si or ti would be B, and do would be C. Again, there's some translation that goes on there depending on where you are in the world, right, and how people refer to notation. But here in North America, it is C, D, E, F, G. What happens after G? You go back to the beginning of the alphabet, which is A, B, and back to C. So that's why when you are here from E, you're going from E, F, G, then A, then B, then C, then D, back to E again, and then F, okay? But how do you remember all of that? You're going to remember 2 very simple rules. For the lines, you're going to remember every good boy does fine. Every for E, good for G, B for boy, D for does, and F for fine. If you can remember that every good boy does fine, then you'll be able to read any of the line notes in the treble clef like this. If the note is on the 3rd one, every good boy, B. If the note is on the 4th line, every good boy does, D, done. If it's the last line, every good boy does fine, F, last one. 1st line, E, every. So if you're able to remember that pattern, every good boy does fine, or every good boy deserves fudge, then you'll be able to read the line notes for the treble clef. I might be silly, but trust me, again, I taught 5-year-olds this, I taught 75-year-olds this, and it always clicked. Let's talk about spaces. Spaces are a lot easier. You've got 4 of them, and those are F, A, C, and E. And if you put F, A, C, and E together, what word does that spell? That's face. So F, A, C, E, or face, is the rule that you need to know for the spaces in the right hand. So if you can remember F, A, C, E, you'll know that the note that's on the 1st space is F, the one that's on the 2nd space is A, the one that's on the last space is E, and the one that's second to last, or the 3rd space, is C. Now, this might get confusing because there's going to be 2 more rules we're going to get to in the bass clef. So how do you differentiate which rule is for what? Well, for the treble clef, let's think of people. Every good boy does fine. And what do people have? Faces, okay? So every good boy does fine, and face. So if you can remember people for the treble clef, then you'll be able to remember every good boy does fine, or every good boy deserves fudge for the right hand, for the lines. And then you'll remember face for the spaces, F, A, C, and E. Now for the bass clef, it's a little different. The bass clef also, 5 lines, 4 spaces. It has this symbol right here that looks like the number 9. It's got that little F clef, or the bass clef, with the 2 dots right there. Here are the notes that you have to know from the 1st line to the last. It starts on G and it goes to A. Now that might be confusing already because what did we establish was the first line in treble clef? Every, E. But in the bass clef, it's G. Why is that the case? Well, it's the way that the notes are placed when you put them all together on the grand staff, and I'll go over that in a second. But right now, let's just think about the bass clef. Let's just focus on the bass clef. The bass clef has the 5 lines and the 4 spaces, just like the treble clef. The bass clef, those 5 lines are G, B, D, F, and A. And yes, we're going to do another acronym for this, right? G, B, D, F, and A. We're going to start thinking about dogs. And the first one was every good boy deserves fudge, or every good boy does fine for the treble clef. For the bass clef, we're going to think about dogs. Great big dogs from Alaska. If you can remember that great big dogs are from Alaska, then you'll know that the 5 lines in the bass clef are G, B, D, F, and A. Great big dogs from Alaska. So when you see a note that's on the last line of the bass clef, it's A. When you see a note that's the 3rd line of the bass clef, great big dogs, it's D. The first one, G, great. So great big dogs from Alaska is the lines for the bass clef. Now let's talk about the spaces. The spaces are not as easy as the space rule in the treble clef. The treble clef, it was just face. This one is another acronym. It doesn't spell out anything. But we've got A, C, E, and G. And we're going to stay on that animal motif, and we're going to talk about cows. All cows eat grass. A, C, E, G. If you can remember that all cows eat grass, then you'll remember that the first space is A for all, the second space is C for cow, the third space is E for eats, and the last space is G for grass. All cows eat grass. Now, we've got great big dogs from Alaska, and we've got all cows eat grass. Cows, dogs, what's our motif here? Our motif in the treble clef was people, but our motif in the bass clef is going to be animals. Great big dogs from Alaska, all cows eat grass. If you can remember animals for the bass clef or the left hand, and people for the treble clef or the right hand, then you'll be able to differentiate the 4 rules from one another. So remember, both sets of clefs have 5 lines and both sets of clefs have 4 spaces. The treble clef, once again, is every good boy does fine or every good boy deserves fudge, whichever one works easier for you. And then the second, for the space, is face. The spaces are faces. No, I'm just kidding. It's just face. So people, the motif being people there. In the bass clef, it is great big dogs from Alaska. It is all cows eat grass. And that allows you to easily differentiate the 2 from one another. So then why are the line notes for the bass clef different than the line notes from the treble clef and vice versa for the space notes as well? Well, it all has to do with the grand staff and the placement of those notes. When you combine the treble clef and the bass clef together to play on the piano or to just overall put compositions together, they're all related to one another. So let's think about it like this. You've got great big dogs from Alaska, correct? So G is your bottom line here. Now, if you keep going up, you're going to go all the way to A. We established that A, Alaska, is the last line of the bass clef. Well, what happens if you go a note above that line? If you go on a space note, it is a space note, but not in the traditional sense of what we looked at so far. It's just the note that's after A. So yeah, notes can actually go beyond the 5 lines and the 4 spaces. The note after A is B. The note after B in the alphabet is C. But in our case, it's not just any C. It's what we call middle C. And middle C looks like this. Middle C is the note right in the middle, hence the name, of the treble clef and the bass clef. And because it's a line note, and we want it to be clear that it's a line note, middle C has this fun distinction of being a note that stands outside of the 5 lines and 4 spaces and has a line that goes through it to signify that it's still a line note, but we're not drawing a whole line across the sheet music, just a line around that note, or through that note, I should say. So middle C for the left hand is placed right above the bass clef right here. Middle C for the right hand is placed right below this E for every, right over here. But when we put them relative to one another, we can go from A from Alaska, the last line of the bass clef, up to B, which would be a space note, then middle C, and then the note after middle C would be a D, which would be right below the E. That is every good boy does fine in the right hand. So now you can kind of get the explanation of why the line of treble clef is every good boy starts with E, but the line of the bass clef starts with G. And on a piano, you would have the middle C right here, and then that low G for great would be all the way down here, and then that high F for fine or fudge, depending on the rule that you like, is all the way up here. So even though the notes from a letter standpoint are close to one another, you've got G all the way down here and you've got F all the way down here, but in the alphabet, F and G are right next to one another. It's all relative of where they are placed in the sheet music. Now, music theory is a whole language on its own. There's so many things that you can learn, but trust me, take these rules and you'll be able to read music instantly. You'll be able to know what note is what. But if you want to get a little bit more clarity on not just what the notes are, but how long you're supposed to hold them, the rhythms, what's the difference between a quarter note, a half note, eighth note, 16th note, and the 9, then make sure to hit that subscribe button because that video will be coming out in a few days. Thanks a lot for watching. My name is Amir, like the kind you look into. I'll see you in the next one.